bum, 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 bum. Mr. Sondheim, play me a song. You do the music and I'll sing along. Give me Sweeney or maybe some Forum. Comedy tonight, no grace or decorum. Mr. Sondheim, you know it's true. Andrew Lloyd Webber, he simply won't do. I will love you till I die. Mr. Sondheim, don't say goodbye. Mr. Sondheim, thanks for the goods. Thank you for Follies and Into the Woods. What would we do without you, honey? No Sundays in the park would ever be sunny. Mr. Sondheim, send in the clowns. If you retire, our faces wear frowns. Now we are stuck with dim lights on Broadway. They need to just wake up and do things your way, Mr. Sondheim. I've got a hunch that we'll duet on the ladies who lunch. I have loved you all along. Mr. Sondheim, play me, please, please play me. Sondheim, play me a song. Part 1. Someone woke up. Do I Hear a Waltz, 1965. The mostly disastrous collaboration of Richard Rodgers and Stephen Sondheim. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. So began, officially, the journey of discovering my truest self. And like most stories, it simply begins with, once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, there lived a fair maiden, a sad young lad, and a childless baker with his wife. Well, not exactly. This is a story about connection. I found out about Stephen Sondheim when I was 14. He had a way of accurately expressing how I felt about the world around me, better than plain words ever could. But we'll get to that. On the spectrum, talking to other people can just sound like pure confusion. I was born on July 18th, 1993, to a pair of Miami Dolphin fans who later divorced. I was supposed to be a boy, fun fact. I guess that would mark the first time people expected me to be something that I wasn't. Research has shown that autism spectrum disorders have a genetic component, but how their symptoms manifest can be affected by one's upbringing. Growing up, I was somewhat sheltered and didn't really have play dates with other children. Occasionally, I would attend Gymboree, where I was reported as wandering away from the group to play alone. Yet nobody seemed to think my lack of socialization was anything worth investigating. I can't really blame them. It was the 90s. Hey up there, way up there, what do you say up there? Follies, 1971. I'm sure a lot of you know this already, but every song in Follies is a pastiche or an homage to a different artist. For example, Buddy's Blues, also known as the God Why Don't You Love Me Blues, is inspired by patter songs by the likes of Frank Lesser. Losing My Mind is a tribute to George Gershwin and Harold Arlen. And the finale, Live, Laugh, Love, pays homage to Fred Astaire. Follies was the third Sondheim show I saw on Broadway, after Gypsy and A Little Night Music. And like Desiree for Frederick, or Sally for Ben, my heart pines for you. But I don't tell you about my autism. Not yet, I say. Maybe next time. Is it something I should keep hidden from the world? Lonely nights, days wondering where it could have gone wrong. I want you to take me away from here.
began kindergarten, my first progress report said that I needed improvement in staying in my chair, interrupting the teacher, and using scissors. Fun fact, I'm still really bad at cutting things. But it was first grade when I began to start feeling, well, different. I didn't share any interests with other children, and we didn't really have the same senses of humor. Years passed, and I just kind of went with the motions, going to birthday parties and other different kid things. But I still preferred to hang out with my teachers. It wasn't until 5th grade, though, that things really began to change. I recall one instance in which I had to do favors for this group of girls to be included with them. And then once I finished the favors, they promptly kicked me out. Another time, this girl told me that she didn't want other kids to know she enjoyed hanging out with me. I was even bullied outright for a while. The head honcho, so to speak, his name was Orlando. Huge kid, intelligence of a fruit fly. He threw a dodgeball at me in gym class and got the game banned from the school. But guess who the other children blamed for it? Also me. By 8th grade, I was down to only one girl that I could truly call my friend. And she was apparently the only person who didn't talk about me behind my back. Or so I learned in a nasty email from one of the other girls. The teachers didn't really do anything to make me feel more accepted at this point. In fact, they started berating me for a lot of the things that made me different. The final straw, though, was when I invited about 15 classmates to my graduation party, and not one of them showed up. I remember lying on the couch, just sobbing. Hey, riddle me this. How many theater people does it take to screw in a light bulb? Just one. They screw it in and believe the world revolves around them. I guess the same goes for Aspies. You tend to live inside your mind. But because you can pass as normal, so to speak, people don't always realize that you're on the spectrum. So that when you do something off, they think it's because you're being weird or even disrespectful. As I've said, you learn as you get older, and it does get better. But in the meantime, maybe you could show me how to let go, lower my guard, learn to be free. Maybe if you whistle, whistle for me. Thank you. Anyone Can Whistle, 1964. It was a flop of the most spectacular proportions. However, it was the stage debut of the legendary actress Angela Lansbury. That being said, I feel any show about the autism spectrum would be remiss without the title song from that musical, but maybe it's just me. It was as a freshman in high school, though, that I first truly discovered the theater. I'd seen Disney musicals on Broadway as a child, of course, but I couldn't remember them. I was so little. But seeing Wicked in 2007 was momentous. I was so blown away when Elphaba defied gravity. The first musical I ever performed in was the High School Drama Club's production of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Interestingly, it was here that I also had my very first crush on the guy playing Prince Charming. Fun fact, he's a professional performer now. He was in Fun Home on Broadway, and he's currently playing a leading role in the current national tour of Dear Evan Hansen. His name is Mara, you should look him up. Anyway, when life was still simple, I made two great discoveries. That of Stephen Sondheim, as well as his mentor, Oscar Hammerstein II. I went on a trip with the Drama Club to watch the most recent revival of South Pacific on Broadway, and it remains one of the best shows I've ever seen. You know, I stayed up late night after night on my laptop, scouring for productions and songs that could move me. I watched the taped 2006 revival of Company, being brought to tears by how well the song Being Alive expressed my simultaneous desire for and fear of entering a relationship. Part 2, Someone in a Tree. Well, perhaps not literally, I mean, we are indoors. Pacific Overtures, 1976. A cast full of men, kabuki style, tell the story of American conquest in Japan. We learned about this in AP American History class. And you are so smart, my love. 2 bachelor's degrees, one for history and one for theater. You teach me about playwrights of old, Ibsen, Chekhov, O'Neill, Williams, the Bard. But I don't know yet if I understand you like you understand me. I don't know if it's something I can do. All I know is that you've been there when I've needed you. And that's enough. Although the students at my old girls' high school were super nice and much more tolerant of me than my grammar school comrades, I still struggled to fit in. Everyone seemed to have a clique, but I felt like a butterfly, flitting from group to group, depending on who I wanted to talk to at a given moment. My history teacher said to me once that I was something different, which he liked because, quote, the uniforms aren't the only thing here that are carbon copies. That's Catholic high school for you. I excelled academically, but due to my protective family and lack of common sense, I had a lot more trouble with the ways of the world, or grasping them. And sometimes people, even your family, underestimate your capability. If you never do anything twice, as the master would say, then someone like me must do it like 10 times. How can I move forward? There come those moments when you doubt yourself, too. Quoth Cinderella's stepmother, "Some people are cut out to battle giants and others are not. I don't have the constitution, and as long as I can be of no help, I'm going to hide." Despair is not a fun place to visit, let me tell you. And you do almost want to run away from your problems, or you aren't sure why you bother trying at all. The questions of the world that neurotypical people already struggle with baffle Aspies entirely. At 15 years old, I had a teacher by the name of Kathy Nolan. Ms. Nolan was unlike anyone I had ever known before. Soft-spoken, logical, and charitable to a fault. She had also been battling cancer for many years. I spent many a night crying over her, unable to understand why someone so good was suffering so much. Ms. Nolan told me once that with a little polish, I would shine. I suspect she knew I was different, but she taught me how to see myself in the face of others, to be good to them. And also, that bad things do sometimes happen to good people. She retired after I took her class, and as I found out, succumbed to her disease in 2017. I was heartbroken. But fate had more plans in store. You and me at Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn. I don't drive, so you're graciously at the wheel. We've just gotten engaged, which is a miracle in itself, but you still didn't have to do this. A hot summer day, me and you looking for Miss Nolan's grave. We can't find it. Instead, we find the headstone of Leonard Bernstein. It's almost like a pilgrimage for me. West Side Story, 1957. Funny thing about West Side Story, in the song Maria, there has a line, "Say it's soft and it's almost like praying." There's a reason that's in there. It's because Tony was originally written to be a very religious Polish Catholic. This character trait of his was later discarded. Another funny thing about that show is that it lost the Best Musical Tony to The Music Man that year. However, when their motion pictures both came out the same year, it was West Side Story and not The Music Man that won the Oscar for Best Picture. Funny how things work out like that. By the end of my high school years, I had only performed in shows. Diary of Anne Frank, Once Upon a Mattress, the usual fare. In college, though, I suddenly got a desire to write something new. I'd always had a natural talent for writing essays, poems, and stories, but I never really attempted a play before. That is, unless you count my Michael Phelps parody skit, How to Be a Fan, P-H-A-N, without really trying. To be perfectly frank, I still wish I had those lined pieces of notebook paper where I scribbled it down as a preteen. I thought it was pretty funny, but what do I know? I digress. It was also around this time that I was officially diagnosed. It didn't happen all at once. I started to feel very off, whatever that means to you. And I asked my mom if I could see a psychologist. Many sessions later, the Institute of Basic Research confirmed Asperger's syndrome with obsessive-compulsive tendencies and some depression symptoms. And I did begin a regimen of medications, which proved to be quite helpful. However, I was also about to be thrust into the complexities of adulthood, where there are gray areas. And as any autistic person can tell you, we strongly prefer black and white thinking. You know, one bombshell stands out in particular. It was when I lost a paid internship at a major financial company, which shall remain nameless. It was a prestigious award that also came with a college scholarship. My concentration was declining by this point, and my coworkers were also concerned by me talking to myself in the bathroom and doing other behaviors that were seen as atypical. Sometime after the company dismissed me from the program, my grades also started to slip in school. That was when the alarm bells were going off in my head, and I took off a semester to attend cognitive therapy 3 times a week. I credit Yvette Fruchter, the young psychology extern working with me, for recalibrating my thoughts and ultimately saving my life. But I consider all these events to be serendipitous now, as they enabled me to discover my true calling. If they hadn't happened, I also would have never met you. Do you remember? You were playing a role in a short play I wrote to be performed in front of an audience for the first time. It was the day of rehearsal. I know your name and nothing else. You walk into my basement and I'm instantly struck by how handsome you are. Wavy brown hair to run my fingers through, olive skin to touch. And then your name beats in my chest. Sam, Sam, Sam! I can handle all this, you tell yourself. The path is straight. Well, it's straight when you're in your element. Scholars refer to that element as one's special interest. It's a common thing for people on the spectrum to have this one topic that they put bundles of their energy into. It can change with time. Fun fact, my first special interest was video games. Good old Nintendo. That's actually common for kids on the spectrum, and I would play alone for hours on end, thrilled to have an escape from the ordinary world. Now for me, writing and performing is always a good way to blow off steam. It's what I call the God complex, making a hat where there never was a hat. Sunday in the Park with George, 1984. But how the hell is any of this going to bring me any closer to you, Sam? You know, support is a thing that every person on the spectrum needs, and yet it can also be something that gets them into trouble. I myself have a problem with caring, with feeling for others too much. Is it so bad? Call me a dreamer, I suppose. But it isn't that unrealistic if you think about it. It could even be as simple as words of comfort. When you're navigating society on the spectrum, it is absolutely crucial to surround yourself with positive influences and people who appreciate you just the way you are. The Short Play Festival is a rousing success. They love my words, your acting. Then after a grace period, we plan a date, and we go to bed together that same night. Part 3. Someone is waiting. Waiting for you to open your eyes. They tell me you've been in an accident. You had the right of way and some jerk ran the light. I run so fast. God, I hate hospitals, but I love you, Samuel. You know, there's a saying that if you've met a person with autism, you met one person with autism. Yes, there are several traits that characterize it, but it is a spectrum, allowing for different experiences. And I've never lost someone I truly loved before. Is this something I can cope with? But then you come back to this realm, and the first thing you see is me. I know now, as in all of one's life, that I can't give up.
Sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Do not let it grieve you. No one leaves for good.
And I decide, right then and there, that I have to tell you about this part of myself, in sickness and in health, for better or for worse. Isn't that what we all want in the end? Every knot was one straight rope. Opportunity is not a lengthy visitor. Such platitudes do contain grains of truth. They apply to you, they apply to me. Even though I filter the world with a lens that's different than most people, I still want to find happiness in it. How could I be who I am with no one to understand? By doing what I am right in this moment. Telling the story of how it all happened. And this story is about to end. But mine isn't. Because the truth is that Sam doesn't exist. He's an amalgamation of 3 men I've loved thus far and who left me. Right now I'm single and a little bit scared. But I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine photographs flying around the room. Photographs of people I've encountered in my life. There's my mom, there's my brother, and there are my friends from high school, and my professors from college, and people I've met in between. When I think back on all these people, I marvel at how so many of them have affected me, left footprints on my very soul. Those like maybe a future Sam, who will understand what you go through and stay at your side. A best friend who, despite attending graduate school in Indiana, still has your back. A professor who teaches you about God and laughs with you. Yvette Fruchter and Kathy Nolan, shining examples of generosity and warmth. Or Sondheim, whether he knows it or not, paving a road for you with his art. And so many more. Honestly, those links might be the only way to make the invisible ties visible. You go into the woods and out of the woods to happy ever after. I wish.
Hey, old friends, are you okay? Old friends, what do you say? Old friends, are we or are we unique? Time goes by, everything else keeps changing. You and I, we get continued next week. Most friends fade or they don't make the grade. New ones are quickly made and in a pinch, sure they'll do. But us, old friends, what's to discuss? Old friends, here's to us. Who's like us? Damn few.
Please, thank you all so much for coming out.